All right, after a few grading, this is Access Lab 2. After grading a few, it seems like the main thing, I think I should, in the video, I showed you the steps you need to do for most of it, I think. I forget which parts I left for you to do, but I do remember one specific part I left for you guys to do, and that was on the connectivity and the business rules. And I think most people sort of got the connectivity correct. The one to many, and many, there's this one to many employee to hardware, and hardware was one to many to config, and software was one to many to config. You had the one colon, you had those one column M's the right way, pretty much. But a lot of people kind of left the business rules blank or had some obscure answers that weren't quite right. So I gave little mini lessons on it, and I realized this is going to take a long time if I do that on because there's a lot of you guys. So if I do it for everybody who needs a lesson on it, I'm going to repeat it myself, and sometimes it'll be better than other times. I want to give one good lesson. Well, this is kind of off the top of my head too, but I know I had an example. I've shown this before. So as I was describing to a couple of the students, what business rules are, first of all, they're just called business rules. So I'm doing air quotes when I say business, because, it was originally used for like business reasons or whatever. They're just rules, though, that describe the way the data is organized in some kind of system. I used organization before. You could say organization, enterprise. There's different word structure, I guess. There are different words you could use for it besides business. Business is just kind of the traditional name. If you say business rules in the database design context, people know what you mean if they know database design. But what are they? Business rules are a sort of semi-formal. If you compare it to programming, for you guys know program, it's kind of like the plan. The what's the word? It's not pseudocode. It's kind of like pseudocode, actually. It's almost to the level of pseudocode. It's just a formalized, I don't want to say too formalized. It's loosely formalized statement of the way how things interact in a database, and specifically in terms of entities and the relationships between the entities. So I've got some here on the screen, and this is for the thing that I had to do in a class. What I want to say is that this is where you start. So you'll investigate, maybe ask the people who work at the business, in quotes, business, or the people who work with the data every day. Ask them, first of all, somebody's asked you to do this probably. So what's the purpose of the data? What do you need to do with it? What kind of questions might you ask about it? But also, just get them to describe how they operate with it. So in this particular example, this was the database for like the auction site, kind of like eBay. So this is the discussion forum here. Just this first question just shows you an example. There's an item entity. And my question was, when you say you're auctioning an item, is it a fact that each and every item is an individual item, as far as kind of like we're all individual human beings? Or is it the sense that I shouldn't say that. Never mind. That's what I was about to say. Take this example. Like you have a Nintendo Switch that you're done with. I hate Nintendo Switches, which is not true. It's usually the other way around. They're kind of hard to come by. But like if you're done with, you're going to auction it, you put it up for sale. Is it the fact that every Nintendo Switch is that one item in the Nintendo Switch versus an Xbox that somebody puts up? Or do you count each and every individual Switch as a different item from another Switch, right? So are all Switches one item? Or is each and every single different separate Switch a different item, was the question I had. That's a business rule concern, because later on we have to talk about these things. Here's where I just describe what the entities are, but then I kind of like fade into business rules without actually putting it. This was just like a planning document that I was making, but these are examples of business rules. So here's one right here. A user can post many items for auction. An item can be posted by many users. So this is the question I had. So this is a business rule. This is a true business rule. If you leave the parentheses off, if Nintendo Switch is one item, right? So it depends on what the purpose of the person is. I think in the end it was each individual switch was a different switch. So an item could only be posted by one user, right? Because two people can't own the same thing, at least in this system. So an item can have many ratings. That's a business rule. Many ratings means that there are users. For every user out there, you might have a rating. For somebody, I guess, that bought it, a rating can be given to many items. So yeah, obviously you can give a rating. All kinds of different items can have ratings. All right, a user can leave many ratings. A rating can be left by many users. So a user can. There's 10 different items the user bought, so he can rate each one of them. That's many ratings. A rating can be left by many users. So this has to be. I forget what how an item is, but if you're talking about Nintendo Switch, I mean, this is the way you usually see it in a system where you're rating things, right? Many different users might get different ratings to Nintendo Switch, but so that's kind of a mini relationship there too. All right. So this is just to show you some examples of business rules, and that's just mainly connectivity or cardinality, as I call it, like how many things on one side could be how many things on the other. So I want to relate that also to, just because I had some mail there, business, like the other scenarios I always give you. So there's two that I give you a lot. I give you doctor and patient, like a doctor clinic. And of course, it's going to have more things than just the doctor and the patient. But if you just focus in on that relationship, that you can describe the business rules for that. So you would have to ask the people that work there, whatever, how does this place work? Can a patient be assigned to many doctors, or is there only one doctor? Maybe they can see different doctors, but there's still one doctor that's their doctor who keeps track of all their health concerns and stuff. So the business rule would be one doctor can have many patients, and a patient is assigned to one and only one doctor. So that's a one-to-many relationship. The thing about these business rules is you kind of list them all out, make sure they're kind of correct, and then the next step would be to draw the model, the entity relationship diagram and all that. Then you perfect that, and you take that and implement into the database. So you're actually at that last stage in access, because you've already got it. Somebody's already designed that little, it was originally called Pelashifty hardware database or whatever. Somebody's designed that and they've implemented it, and that's why you have that bridge table. This is why I don't want you guys to get confused by this, but you can't implement into a relational database directly a many-to-many relationship. So here's what I'm going to give you the answer right now. I'm going to point all the people I grade subsequently to this video, but let me pause it. Okay, here's the thing that you were supposed to comment on, the business rules. So what are the business rules here? Here's what we can see just from this. Technically, this is a schema. It sort of looks like an ER diagram, but it's actually after the ER diagram's been taken and put into the database. So the business rules here are, judging from what we can see here, is that one employee, and you can see the one here, can be assigned many pieces of hardware. So many machines is what I was saying in some of the feedback I gave. It's easier to say machine than piece of hardware, but so many machines can be assigned to one employee. Any particular machine is assigned to only one employee. So again, there's really there's one rule in a way, and it's got two directions. So an employee can be assigned many machines, and a machine is assigned only to one employee. Then for the software, I'm going to call these programs because it's easier to say than piece of software. So I'm still going to call this machine. Again, they're the same thing. I'm just changing the names of them. So the other business rule is a machine can have many programs installed on it. And a program can be installed on many machines. So what is this? This is a many-to-many relationship. Many-to-many. Many programs installed on many machines, and many machines having many programs installed on them, sort of an active-passive thing. This right here exists only at the implementation level. You can put it also in the ER diagrams. It's a thing called an associative entity. It's not necessary though to do it there. You can sort of do it to make it easier for you to get to the point where we're at right here, where we actually create the tables in the database. But the only reason this exists is because you cannot have many-to-many directly implemented in a relational database. What you do is you take that many-to-many relationship. I don't know if you see what I'm doing here, right? This is the many side of hardware. This is the many side of software. You take that many-to-many relationship and you create a new entity in between them, a new table, that divides that many-to-many relationship into two one-to-many relationships. So that's not necessarily a business rule. I know I have one student, and this is not wrong. And if you want to know trying to understand what business rules are, this makes sense if you're doing it from this diagram. But it's not necessarily true. You could sort of say it is, but no. Think about it this way: business rules. If you describe the business rules as somebody who works it maintains this equipment in the lab, whatever, at Pellissippi, are they going to understand what you say when you say one of the business rules is that one machine can appear in many configurations and one program can appear in many configurations of program and machine, right? Which is kind of what this is doing. That doesn't make a lot of sense. If you sat down and explained it, it would make sense. But like, what do you mean configuration? Like, I don't. But if you say that a program can be installed on many machines and a machine can have many programs installed on it, that makes sense to like a human being. Those are business rules. The business rules, again, are the first steps that eventually lead to what you've got here that you're seeing. So when we ask you these questions on the tests and stuff in the lab, we're saying, look at what you got and divine what the business rules must have been if you kind of deconstruct it and go backwards. So again, don't be confused by this bridge table or junction table. This exists to make this many-to-many relationship implementable in the database. But the business rule is, again, I'm going to list them all right now, so it's less confusing, maybe. An employee can be assigned many machines. Any particular machine is assigned to one and only one employee. A machine can have many programs installed on it, and any particular program can be installed on many machines. Those are the business rules. You can add a little bit more to it. Basically, the business rules that I just talked about were focused on what I call cardinality or connectivity. How many things of one can be related to how many things of the other. You could also say whether it's required or not. So is it required that an employee that a machine be assigned to an employee? If you remember from the later database stuff in the lab, the later stuff you do with this access, I think you'll see that some of the machines had nulls for the assigned to. So that means it's 0 or more. So a machine might not be assigned to somebody. So a machine is assigned to nobody or at most one employee. And it's also probably true that there's some employees who have not been assigned machines. So that would be, again, an optional relationship. So an employee may not have a machine assigned to him at all, but if he does, he could have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. So that's a optional mini relationship. So the business rule would be, if you wanted to further refine a business rule, an employee can be assigned 0 or more machines. A machine is assigned to 0 or 1 employee, and likewise with the software and hardware. So the hardware probably has at least 1 program on it, the operating system, of course, but maybe not. It's a blank disk drive in it, so let's say no. So a machine can have 0 or more programs installed on it. And a program could be installed on 0 or more machines. Maybe nobody wanted Office, or that doesn't seem likely. Nobody wanted Access. Maybe that's true. So you would add a little bit more. You could also have more specific rules, like a doctor will be assigned 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5 patients max. So you would have a maximum. That could be a business rule. And you can have other weird, obscure, but like the basic business rules that we're looking for when we ask on the exam or something. And you need to know this for the midterm, and that's why I'm doing this video more than anything. I didn't want it to be this long. It's 15 minutes. So I'll try to wrap this up. But the main ones we're looking for, those are the ones I told you, like one-to-many stuff, and maybe optional or mandatory. You might want to throw that in. Probably won't have too many things about maximum of 5 or anything like that. But anything that you use to describe how the entities relate to each other in your database that you're constructing is a business rule. And again, air quotes, business rule. Hope that helps. There's also stuff in the book. Read that stuff if it makes more sense to you. But that's what we're looking for, are things like, one more time, just the stuff that looks like this. A category can have many items, right? It could be the fact that an item could be in several different categories, but for mine, I'm saying no, it's in one category. That's my rule for how the data works here. Or, and then an item can be in one category. A category can have many items in it. So a category may be books, right? And you have like a bunch of different titles of books in that books category. But it could also be, like Lord of the Rings. That could be 2 categories, movies and books, right? But not in my database. You have to pick one. Are you talking about the book? Or are you talking about the movie? They'll put it in book or movie. So you get the idea. Anyway, I hope that helps. If you have any questions, let me know. But you do need to know this for the midterm, because there's a couple of questions where you say, hey, what are the business rules? And you have to know how to figure them out. All right. Thank you.